Happy Sunday, folks. Courtney Cox here with Matt Chatham. Patriots in Baltimore to take on the Ravens. I think this is the first time that we've done this at night.
Yeah.
Every time we've done in-studio pregame chat, it's been earlier afternoon. So this is different.
It's a TV trick. We can still make it look like the same time of day. But I wore a jacket, guys.
Absolutely, yeah. Fancy
nighttime.
stuff.
Fancy.
Yeah. 8:20 kickoff, and we're looking at a game that a lot of people think might be the first big test for this 8-0 Patriots team. I know that you have a lot to say about that. If you did read his article, that was it posted today?
No, it was earlier this week on The Athletic, so I think Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in that range. But yeah, Court, I agree that this is going to be a competitive game. I don't think we're seeing the Washington game that the Patriots have necessarily, the first Jets game, the Miami game. I think there were a handful of games where you walk in and say, ooh, they would really be screwing up by virtue of not getting a blowout. I think this is more in the vein of the second Jets game or possibly the Giants game, arguably. But there's a lot of fool's gold out there on the resume of the Ravens, and we can get into that a little deeper here in the show.
Well, this is a lot different than past Ravens-Patriots matchups we've seen. In the past, it's always a really talented Ravens defense taking on a really talented Patriots offense. Patriots offense still looking good, but this time roles are kind of reversed. We've got a Lamar Jackson leading the 5-2 Ravens and a Patriots defense that seems unstoppable. So how do you see this matchup really taking place? Will the defense be able to contain a Lamar Jackson?
So this is one of those areas where I would say there is some of that fool's gold. I'd call it a mirage a little bit because, yes, you certainly have had a switch in roles relative to that particular team, right? To the Ravens were used to being, a year ago, one of the highest ranked defense, the highest ranked regular season defense, depending on the metric, but generally points and the the total yards kind of thing. But think of the attrition that team had. I mean, what a changeover that group had. They did get Earl Thomas to come in-house, so it's the addition of one. Eric Weddle's no longer there on the back end, so that's a bit of a wash, especially him coming off of Thomas coming off of the broken leg. But Zadarius Smith, he's with the Packers. C.J. Mosley, he goes to the Jets. T. Sizzle, he's down there in Arizona now. But so all the names that sort of really big and talented core that sort of I think lends part of that MO is this tough and big and physical and dangerous box that Ravens always had. So good against the run, so difficult to run on, makes you spread it out. Played great defense a year ago. This defense is wildly different than they were a year ago. They have since they've last played made a transaction. They've got in Marcus Peters from the Rams. We all know about that trade. That was prior to the trade deadline. So they improved themselves and I think really gave themselves a third, right? So they have Marlon Humphreys, they've got Marcus Peters, and then they've got Jimmy Smith, I believe, who's back from injury. Jimmy is a pretty solid corner. The Patriots know very well, good player in this league. They faced him several times with the Ravens, but he was actually injured, I believe it was like the second series of the season. So he's really not been a part of this. So give them credit. I think they're good at those three spots. The guy you respect on the back end at safety, but much more core weak. And I think that's really the changeover here. We'll get into more to the offense as we get into this, but I think the real changeover is a much more weakened defense than they were when they were in the playoffs a year ago, and an offense that hasn't played anyone. You hear that about the Patriots all the time. They're the group that hasn't played anybody.
Well, you bring up Marcus Peters. I want to touch on him for a quick second. 25 interceptions. He leads the NFL since 2015. So for you, are you worried with Brady in this position? We haven't seen a Brady that we've seen in previous years in these first 8 games.
Tom's had some big games this year that I think get forgotten, but statistically speaking, but I think it is more of a greater theme here. What Marcus Peters is about. He's a ball hawk, but he's also a chance taker. He's going to give up a lot of yards, and he's going to play for that pick six. He's going to play for going to steal one, but I don't think he's a guy that Tom has necessarily had problems with. He certainly has faced him several times in several different places, as a Chief, as a Ram, those kind of things. I don't think there's any, hey, I can't throw to Marcus Peters side. I don't think there's that sense at all. The greater thing I think they have, though, on the back end is because they've added a third sort of high-end veteran. Is you may be less tempted, if you're Brady, to check into the spread stuff, to put their third defensive back on the field against your third wide receiver, because that seems to be a strength. So I'm saying this not really, weighing in real heavily on who their fourth guy would be, because that matters if you're going to put 4 receivers on the field. But I think as much as anything, it might dictate style, game style. We heard them talk a lot this week, Courtney, about run game. In the coaches conference stuff, the phone earlier in the week, Ivan Fears is going heavy on it. Josh mentioned stuff about it. Bill mentions things like that. When I hear them really start to talk about the running game, and they're led into the questions a little bit by some of the media members, but when they're willing to sort of take on those questions and expand a little bit. It tells you, and from experience I know this, it tells you it's also being talked about in that vein in the locker room. So as much as how might Tom match up against that secondary group, I think there's ways to stay out of it. If you don't want to see that really talented third and fourth getting 60 snaps on the field, let's start to see more of the two tight end stuff. We'll be watching for inactivations now to find out who those two tight ends are up on the roster.
Okay, from a veteran quarterback to a pretty young Lamar Jackson. Let's just talk numbers for a quick second. I want to read this to get it correctly. He's completed 136 of 215 passes. He's had 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but on the ground, he's rushed 83 times, 576 yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. Now, reminder that the run game is the Pats' defense kind of biggest weakness. So for you,
I wouldn't say it, but I'll get to that.
Okay, well, if you're looking on paper, a lot of people would. So for Lamar Jackson, do you see him being a problem for this Pats D?
Yeah.
I mean,
so the way this shakes out for me, Courtney, is you first have to look at where the Patriots have the one chink in their armor, if you want to call it that defensively. They had one game where they started giving up a yard per carry that was a little out of whack, and that was against the Browns, right? So if you look back into what happened on the game, you have a single play with 4 missed tackles in a monsoon. Guys just sliding down and giving up this monstrous Chubb run for 80 yards or whatever it was that has ended up being a fumble as well. And that really polluted the yards per carry. It makes a stat kind of blow up for the day. The other thing you look back to is in the couple drives that came after, they were playing relatively thin boxes. The Patriots still didn't believe that they had to get out of their sub stuff, that they could still defend around the sub. So at that point, you're up 17 points and you're starting to concede some things. You're starting to say, oh, you can only take away so much. The run game is what it is. Time's working against the Browns. We'll concede that. Let them have the 6 and 7 yard gains that also come with 40-second runoffs. That's a win for us. By and large, if this team wants to go regular, and they did in that Brown game, as soon as they put the big boy 3-4 defense on the field, they snuff it out. There's nothing there. So I would say relative to the Ravens, the reason the Ravens have such tremendous run numbers is because Lamar Jackson is an absolute terror as a scrambler, which isn't really a run play, right? So they don't distinguish that in the stat sheet. If he takes off on a pass play and runs for 45 yards, it goes down as a run, and it goes into the running yards per carry, which is really irrelevant to the kind of stuff we're talking about relative to the Patriots' run defense. So I think what you have to do with Lamar Jackson is contain his scrambling and defend the run as you always would. Now, I look at his run performances, and I'll give that to Mark Ingram, who I have a ton of respect for, really good back. Gus Edwards, the second guy, really good back. This is a talented backfield, I think a notch above where they were a year ago. But they have played the worst run defenses in the NFL this year. And this is really the story that never got told this week, other than, I guess, my column. And I was really trying to hammer. This is what the Patriots get all the time, that, hey, they haven't played anyone good. The reason, the number one run offense in the NFL has gotten to that point because they played, wait for it, number 32, number 31, number 30, number 29. They played the 4 worst rush defenses in the NFL. That's how the stats became what they are. They haven't played a top half run defense yet. And the Patriots are the best, so none of this stuff correlates. Everything they've done in those groups just simply don't relate to what the Patriots do. Another way I would also look at it is look at the Seahawks game. I think that's their big sort of hallmark victory. We won. We won in Seattle. Seattle's the 30th ranked defense in the NFL, Courtney. They're not that good. They've really struggled. In the first half, as we're taping this show right now, they gave up 21 points in the first half to the Bucs, scoring every single drive. So I think that point of context really helps you sort of figure out, okay, that's what was going on. And another sort of an additional point is Lamar Jackson and that offense against Seattle only scored 17 points offensively. So this is not some scary, they put up 30 every week offense, typically, especially against slightly better teams. It's an offense that has put up numbers, but had really mild margins against bad teams. Barely beat the Cincinnati Bengals, who were terrible. Barely beat the Cardinals, who were a real mediocre team. These are less than 1-score wins against bad teams, and then they also got bombed on by the Browns. So I really think that this is, and I've used this line before, probably in previous shows with you, and as you go into this thing, if you had to pick a defense in the NFL, it's a different offense you're facing with Lamar. There's a mesh play. There's a run fake every single time. It's a little goofy. The quarterback is a runner. If you had to choose a defense to play against him, you would pick New England's. New England is built with more big, fast people. They're able to put more defensive backs in the field. They can play man across the board. Most teams don't. They don't only just play man with their regular. They play it in sub and dime, even further into sub. They are comfortable covering every single eligible and rushing every other single guy. Lamar Jackson really struggles with that. Go look at, again, back to the last time he faced a real pressure team, that was the Chargers in the playoffs, and it didn't go well. I think this actually matches up really well for what New England does and what they struggle with.
All right, so from a weakness that you don't agree with to another one. I wonder if you agree with this one.
What else you got?
A weakness for Baltimore is their pass rush.
Yeah.
28th in sacks.
Yep.
So do you think that the Patriots will be able to kind of expose that and use that to their advantage?
So, I give them credit. It's in their place. Harbaugh has had some success in the past game planning to slow things with the Patriots offense. The Patriots offense is in flux. There's no denying that. We actually don't know as you go to game day here if Shaq Mason's going to get the start at right guard. You'll know that here within an hour of kickoff, but we don't know that right now. So there's a possibility the Patriots are still without 3 of their starting offensive linemen. We know that there's, James White pops up on the injury report with a toe thing, right? And they're putting 2 new wide receivers essentially out on the field this week. N'Keal Harry, we all presume, is going to be active. You didn't bring him up for nothing. Mm-hmm. So we're assuming the rookie's going to get out there and play. And Mohamed Sanu, who again has been here for now 8 days or whatever it is. He's been here for just a little more than a week. So there's a good chance there'll be some stalls in the New England offense. But I don't think that's something that would make me just roundly, assume the Patriots are going to struggle throughout. So I think give them credit for style. Assume that the Patriots are going to have some rough drives. But again, I think you mentioned the pass rush. The biggest issue that they've had defensively is they just don't have the horses in the box that they used to have. The guys that put their hands down the line across the offensive line and the linebackers behind them. 2 weeks ago, won't be the case tonight, but 2 weeks ago, they started a guy at middle linebacker who hadn't played in the NFL since the previous November, was signed off the street, hadn't been in camp with anyone, and practiced in 4 days and started for them. So they have been rough. I mean, it's not their fault. I mean, just injuries hit everyone, but the Baltimore's been hit pretty heavily. Their core is not like you remember. So what do they do to compensate for the pass rush you mentioned, Courtney? They blitz a lot, and they like to bring extra people, and that's helped them in some other games with some other teams. But you usually don't do that against New England. So the things that kind of help them even the table a little bit is kind of the formula you try to stay away from when you face Tom. So how that'll all shake out, I don't know. If they don't blitz, they're in trouble because, as you mentioned, they just don't have the guys that are going to win one-on-one down after down to the edge. And if they do blitz, they open themselves up. So who knows?
Blitz, new word.
Blitz.
Well, you bring up N'Keal Harry. Obviously, he's been a big headline for the Patriots this past week. What do you think he can bring? What's the biggest thing he can bring to this Pats team to help them succeed?
Well, our great Doug Kyde and I spoke about this during the week. We were kind of hashing this out, how we thought this might go down, because you bring in a rookie, he's gotten a couple weeks of work, right? And practice reps aren't game reps. We kind of all get that. And we also know the sort of mental part of the Patriots offense, how difficult young guys have had sort of getting themselves into the offense quickly. I think Jacoby Myers is actually a decent example of a guy who's young, right off the street, comes from NC State, undrafted free agent, and then he's pretty productive and helps right away. But what Doug and I were kind of chatting about was like, okay, this is complicated. It's also going to be a guy across from him who's learning as well. So it's like not like Mohamed Sanu can go, hey, N'Keal, line up here. Someone's got to tell him.
Right.
They're all kind of learning it together. And in that environment, what you do, I think, in my view, to simplify things is do packaged plays and let him be the isolation player. And what that means, folks, is in any formation, you might see 3 guys sort of bunched to one side. That's called trips, or there'll be bunches, or sometimes twins where it's 2. And then there'll be an isolation guy, they call it. And it's a guy who's kind of on the other side of the formation. You used to see Gronk do this a lot, where he'd spread out and you're just trying to draw the one-on-one coverage. In those situations, the mental part about learning what route I'm supposed to run based upon what coverage that happens post-snap, that really comes up more for the guys that are bundled together, the guys that are crossing the middle and trying to make their way through traffic and figure out what route to run, when to sit, where to convert it. If you're the isolation guy, it's kind of just you and the dude across from you. Maybe he's off, you're running a shorter route, he's tight, you might run a go route. But I think you can give him simpler things where it just comes down to his raw physical ability, a couple things you can pick up quickly, maybe catch and run, throw him a screen or 2. But I think he can help you by not focusing on him for a while and then turning your attention back to him when you really want to go to that well.
All right, well, while we are here in Watertown, we have some friends. Doug Kyde, like you mentioned, is at M&T Bank Stadium. So let's send it to Doug and Zach Cox.
Thanks, guys. It's electric here in Baltimore. Toughest test of the season for the New England Patriots. But Zach, who are you paying close attention to in this game?
A guy that maybe is a little bit under the radar right now. That's Rex Burkhead, Patriots running back, the best Patriots running back through their first 3 games of the season. I thought he had a really good start to the season, went down with an injury, which has really been kind of the story with Rex Burkhead throughout his tenure here. Been down for 3 weeks, came back last week against the Cleveland Browns. Seemed like they were kind of working him back in slowly. Wasn't very productive in that game, but I think he could have a big role in the Patriots' offensive game plan in this game, especially because James White popped up on the injury report late in the week. He's dealing with a toe injury. We'll see if he plays and how effective he is in this game. Plus, the Ravens defense this season, not the Ravens defense of old, but it's been very good at defending running backs in the passing game. Only one running back has more than 3 catches in a game against this Ravens team this year. That might not bode well for a player like James White in this game. So I think this could be a Rex Burkhead game. Who's the guy you're watching?
My guy is Jamie Collins, linebacker. He's basically been a Defensive Player of the Year candidate for the Patriots this season, and I think that he could play a big role this week of spying Lamar Jackson a little bit. I don't think that'll be his primary role, but he is definitely the most athletic linebacker on the Patriots, despite the fact that he's getting up there in age at 30 years old. But you'd have to think it would either be him, maybe cornerback Jonathan Jones, but Jamie Collins is a good open field tackler. He's going to get after the passer. He's going to drop back into coverage, but like I mentioned, he's extremely athletic as well, and I think the Patriots still can rush Lamar Jackson, despite the fact that he is so fast. He's the fastest quarterback since Michael Vick. I actually asked Kyle Van Noy this week, I said, do you have to, work to contain Jackson, or are you going to get after him? And he said, we still have to be aggressive. So I think that Kyle Van Noy, Dante Hightower, and Jamie Collins, all 3 of those guys will have to be aggressive against Lamar Jackson. But Collins also has that speed to actually run Jackson down. Let's send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thanks, guys. And they will be there throughout the entire game. We've got a good NESN group down there, so follow along with them on Twitter. At Doug Kyde, Jemai Webster is there, at Webster on TV, and at Zach Cox NESN. He is not my brother. He is not my cousin. We are not related. Always weird to say that when it's your last name. But it's time for Keys to the Game with Matt. So let's start with the Pats offense.
Yeah, Pat's offense here, it's something I don't know if I'm calling it the key to the game necessarily, Courtney, but I think it's the number one thing we should all watch for collectively. I think it's the red zone stuff. And we need to figure out what this Patriots red zone offense approach is going to be. It's not been up to their standard. They're winning comfortably each and every week, but as you start to get to some of these better opponents, I think this is a marginally better opponent, not an AFC challenger kind of thing, but marginally better than what they've seen, right? But the Patriots have been, for the season, 50% touchdown percentage in the red zone kind of team. So they were actually, I believe it was 33%. 30. They got a third of them a week ago, which is not up to their standard, right? They're still hitting the point totals. They're still getting some short fields because the defense is getting the turnovers, but we haven't seen really who this team, you want to be up in the 66% range. You want to get well over 60. You want to convert that thing to touchdowns in the red zone at least 2 out of 3 times. But I think they've now put the guys on the roster to be a really good red zone team, but they're super raw. They haven't been with the group for a while. But how they convert those scenarios in the game, I think will go along to say how this goes. N'Keal Harry could be a great guy to throw a fade to down in the low red area. Mohamed Sanu has been known for his red zone proficiency. He's long, he's got really big hands, he bodies people off, and he's a good guy to sit on a route when you want to convert down there. Rex Burkhead, we're looking for an improved health with Rex. Last week was kind of a toe in the water, handful of reps kind of thing. He's been a really good red zone player for them. Out of the backfield, bouncing out of cuts, good short yardage runner. The tight end combination, that's usually something that you start to hammer a little low down there as well. Ben Watson now with another game under his belt, and Matt Lacoste, we're looking for it. We don't know if we're going to get it, Court, but if Matt's able to be active, you've got the 6'6" guy who can do that part of the game. I know folks out there are going to be, oh, Matt Lacoste gets to have sort of an
attitude. And it doesn't
attitude.
Seem like he will be.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's going to be. That's the word? Okay, well then back off that point. But we'll see Ben down there. But the point is, now I've mentioned a few people. Potentially Ben is a higher targeted guy low. Rex Burkhead possibly is a higher targeted guy, someone you turn to. Now N'Keal and Sanu on the field together. You've got a combination of stuff that can work to push that thing a little further on. So we'll see where it goes. I think they need to be better down there as they play better teams. Keep an eye on that tonight.
All right, so you and Doug agree with a little bit of Rex Burkhead action.
We're big Rex guys.
Yeah, big Rex guys. Now on to the defense.
Oh, okay. So one of the things that I noticed here throughout the study, I was looking heavily at the Seahawks game, different kind of defense, obviously. Looking heavily at the Browns game, where the Browns put won by 14 on them, and then looking back to the Chargers game, where Lamar Jackson had so much trouble with pressure. And one of the things that, as you can watch at home, or if you happen to be down in Baltimore watching this thing, watch the screen and count defensive backs deep in the deep part of the field. The Patriots have been doing very little of that. Seattle, for whatever reason, would occasionally have one, if not two guys, 15 yards down the field. Hey guys, come join the party. Lamar's down here. There's not a huge threat. The vertical guy would be Marquise Brown. He's been out. He returns, but this is still a rookie. You don't wildly change your game plan for one possible Marquise Brown play. I think if the Patriots, and they've shown a willingness to do this. We learned this last week. We all wondered this on our pregame chat a week ago down there at Gillette. Would they be willing to, maybe start doubling a little bit because you got Odell Beckham? They didn't feel the need to do it. Stephon Gilmore still was able to single. If you're willing to single a little bit better crew of receivers that they saw a week ago than they'll see this week in the Ravens, I think this team is willing to take the people out of the deep part of the field, play man across the board, and get after it. Bring 5, 6, 7 guys at Lamar, because that's what you need. This is the final point on the defense. He will kill you. Lamar will kill you if you just rush 4 up the field and don't front the pocket. He will go right down the middle and he'll take off for 25 yards. What the Patriots are unique in what they can do is they got Jamie Collins. So it's not rush Jamie, it's bring your 4, make sure you have someone there at the front of the pocket that can kind of shadow him and bring those extra rushers. It's volume that gets after and that gives Lamar trouble. If you're going to put people in the deep part of the field, you thin the area where Lamar likes to go.
All right, well, you all know what time it is now. It's time for Chatham's Choice. Right now, we've got New England -3, over under 44.5 points. So what do you do?
Well, it opened at 3.5 early in the week, and I was telling you, go, 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 buy on that, right? Corn futures or whatever. But no, I thought I was really heavy on it at 3.5. Comes down to 3. It just feels like it's gifts. Folks, I think you need to understand why it got to this, so I'll try to do this in a quick 30-second kind of spot. This line was actually 6.5 when Vegas opened with it. A couple of the big houses on the 22nd of October opened for this game initially. They opened at 6.5, -6.5. That's a reasonable number. If it had been -6.5 right now, we'd be probably doing a points thing off the point totals. But it was 6.5, and while the Ravens were on a bye, there was a lot of Vegas sharp money. Sharp money's the sharp bettors, the professional guys, the guys who do this for real, for a profession. They'll spend $100,000 on a bet, $500,000 on a bet, big money. So all this money flows to the Ravens side on that 6.5 to bring it down. So then when it opens, after the Patriots finish playing the Browns, now it's at 3.5. It got there, not because anyone thinks it should just be 3.5. Home's only worth for the adjusted home advantage for the Ravens is 0.297, or 2.97. So it's basically 3 points. What they would be telling you with 3 is that these are perfectly even teams. Nobody on earth thinks that. But the money came down because of all that extra sharp money that was put on the home side. So it brought it down from 6.5 to this 3. Since that time, when it's been sitting at 3, the public betting has been way above it, at 80% to 20. So 80% on the visitors. So there's a reason the number's at 3. It's a freebie. Go get it. Go jump all over that. They had to pull it down, and the way Vegas does this is they need equal money on both sides of that thing because they're attempting to they're not taking a bath. They don't want to take a bath. They need to make sure that they're covered. And if too much flows to one side, they got to pull it down to entice public money. They did that. It's a great week, folks. Go get crazy on that 3.
It's a great week.
It's a great week.
So we think Bill Belichick gets 301 tonight?
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
301. I mean, that's the real important.
We're
Get
really
to over
just,
300,
we're just
301.
accumulating bizarre stats at this point, so hope you enjoyed.
All right, well, there you have it. Matt Chatham, enjoy the game. Happy Sunday Night Football, 8:20 kickoff from Baltimore. So enjoy, guys, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.